190. The Hegelian Revolution. Chalcedon Position Paper number 126, October 1991. Modern philosophy began with René Descartes, who made the starting point of his thought the autonomy of the human mind. His premise, "I think, therefore I am," meant that philosophy now had as its essential realm and reality the mind of man. Man's mind was his given or presupposition. God and matter were things the mind of man had to prove, and whose existence man's mind had to establish. Berkeley soon eliminated the material world, reducing it to sense impressions, so that only the mind and God were real. David Hume then eliminated God. Immanuel Kant, in his Critique of Pure Reason, added that there was no need for an objective material world and a God out there. Hitherto, it has been assumed that all our knowledge must conform to objects, but all attempts to extend our knowledge of objects by establishing something in regard to them a priori, by means of concepts, have, on this assumption, ended in failure. We must therefore make trial whether we may not have more success in the task of metaphysics if we suppose that objects must conform to our knowledge. Kant, Critique of Pure Reason, preface to the second edition, N.P. 1787, B. 16. The implications of this were clearly seen by G. F. W. Hegel, 1770 to 1831, the father of modern thought, political, educational, feminist, and more. The reality of things now rested in the mind of man. Hence Hegel said, "Reason is the sovereign of the world. It is true substance, and also infinite power." Hegel, Philosophy of History, N.P. P.F. Collier and Son, 1901, page 52. For Hegel, thus, God had been replaced by reason. For him, the natural is the unspiritual, but man is God only insofar as he annuls the merely natural and limited in his spirit and elevates himself to God. Ibid, page 415. Hegel was echoing the Greek dialectic of mind versus matter. Spirit meant the realm of truth, of pure reason. For Hegel, the rational is the real, so that what a rational elite determines is therefore reality. Man's self-consciousness as a self-contained existence is Hegel's goal. I am I in the sense that the I which is object for me is sole and only object, is all reality and all that is present. Hegel, Phenomenology of Mind, London, England, 1949-1961, page 273. This explains why the heirs of Hegel are oblivious to the disasters and mass murders they perpetrate. Their self-consciousness and reasoning is for them the only reality and truth. This truth they embody in the state. The state is the divine idea as it exists on earth. Philosophy of History, page 87. Modern philosophy, thus, has been the triumph of the spirit in this Hegelian sense. Very few have seen the connection between Hegel and the many anti-biblical, quotes, spiritual, end quotes, faiths which followed him. Spiritualism was one development. Christian Science was another. Mary Baker Eddy in Science and Health, 1875, held that Jesus was the offspring of Mary's self-conscious communion with God, pages 29 and 30. She initiated the conception by her spiritual state. Humanity thus, through spirituality, could transcend its limitations. In the medieval era and later, it was believed that women had greater orgasmic capacities and sensuality than men. Now it came to be held that women were more spiritual and less earthly than men. Hegelianism begat not only transcendentalism, but also feminism. Hence, feminists began to speak of God as she, in order to stress God's spirituality. And they promoted themselves as the saviour of mankind. Charles Darwin was one of the, quote, saints, end quote, in this Hegelian tradition. Hegel wrote of humanity's cultural evolution towards a higher and spiritual estate, and he saw this state as the incarnation of reason, of spirit. Darwin applied Hegel's evolutionary faith to the realm of biology. All things were, for Darwin, moving upward out of primeval matter as spirit struggled for freedom. For Karl Marx, this development was from the kingdom of necessity to the kingdom of freedom, of free spirit. Peter Gardella has called attention to Darwin's success and the reason for it. Many theologians welcomed Darwin because he seemed to ratify the vision of life straining upward, out of animal existence and toward the spirit, which they had been developing for decades before the Origin of Species, 1859. Peter Gardella, Innocent Ecstasy, How Christianity Gave America an Ethic of Sexual Pleasure, New York, New York, Oxford University Press, 1985, page 56. For some time, Kantian and Hegelian ideas had infiltrated the churches, and, as a result, the churches did indeed receive Darwin readily. It was some years before an effective counter-theology developed. The stress on spirituality within the churches went hand in hand with such things as perfectionism, the Keswick higher life and victorious living movement, and much, much more. It was very much in evidence in the antinomianism of Mary Baker Eddy and the Campbellites. And antinomian thinking began to appear at Old Princeton. Quote, spiritual, end quote, Christianity was stressed and God's law rejected. This opened the door to humanistic status law. Churchmen began to affirm a belief in some kind of vague goodness and law out there and available to all men, and they retreated from politics. Politics, education, science, and more were surrendered to the states, while churchmen concentrated on, quote, spirituality, end quote. Inspirational books became popular, teaching, quote, spiritual, end quote, Christianity. A vast network of summer conferences and camps for church people were created, all fostering spiritual rather than biblical knowledge, faith, and obedience. The, quote, inspiring, end quote, speaker or preacher was now the central figure in popular piety. Outside the churches, some startling developments took place. Upper-class women, as the spiritual leaders of society, distanced themselves from their bodies. Good women, it was held, did not enjoy sex. Between 1870 and 1900, for 30 years, a new operation gained popularity. The clitoridectomy, female, quote, circumcision, end quote, was performed to deliver women from passion and its demeaning effects. Gardella, pages 69 following. Twin beds became fashionable after the Civil War to deliver upper-class women from proximity to men's lust. Dr. John Cowan prescribed total abstinence from sex with 1 yearly act for conceiving a child. Gardella, page 59. Hegel had said that the state is based on religion understood as freedom from necessity. Law speaks of necessities, and the direction of modern law has been to deliver man into freedom from the necessities of moral law, family ties, and all the varieties of social obligations. Quote, free sex, end quote, is thus an aspect of this deliverance. It is spiritual, in the sense that it does not bind man with any material or legal ties. Quote, free sex, end quote, means casual sex, relationships without ties or obligation. The truest liberation from the kingdom of necessity is freedom from all bonds and obligations. Hence, for this mentality, irresponsible sex is liberating, whereas marital sex is dull and confining, materialistic and unspiritual. As a result, we have politics without moral order, lawless sexuality, and pious gush in the place of Christianity. Abortion, homosexuality, euthanasia, incest, and more are all advocated in terms of man's liberation. The goal of all this, quote, liberation, end quote, is the salvation of man. Instead of salvation as the regeneration of man, we now have salvation seen as the divestiture of man from Christianity, family, morality, and the past. In the state schools, it is seen as the teaching of permissive sexual, quote-unquote, standards and a self-created value system. The differences between Moscow, Paris, Rome, Washington, D.C., and other capitals is one of degree, not of kind. All are, to some extent, anti-Christian. The duty of philosophy, according to Hegel, is to establish a new religion. Hegel, on Christianity, New York, New York, Harper, 1948-1961, page 38. Hegel insisted on every man's right to his own convictions and his own will, because, for him, there was no God-given truth. Hence, no one has a right to alter what another has chosen. Ibid, page 91. We see this attitude today in the radical hostility to conversion. To become a missionary, to proselytize, is to infringe on the freedom of other men in this view. Of course, converting them to atheism or Marxism is seen as simply helping men to be free. For Hegel, religion meant this self-evaluation of man. Ibid, page 311. Hegel wrote, to consider the resurrection of Jesus as an event is to adopt the outlook of the historian, and this has nothing to do with religion. Ibid, page 292. Men must not, in Hegel's view, be bound by history nor by law. This reduces him to the kingdom of necessity, when his salvation is a kingdom of freedom. In following Hegel, who followed the Hellenic philosophers, we are aping the Greeks and the Romans and will face the same kind of judgment. We are better at protecting the freedom of criminals in our courts than in protecting their victims. Their victims, after all, demand justice, a relic of Christianity, when the watchword of courts and civil and educational powers is liberation. However, men and societies who liberate themselves from God liberate themselves thereby from life. We face a time of growing judgment, and there is no deliverance possible apart from the triune God. Look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God, and there is none else. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 22.